Fube. This is Misal Bay, aka Warlock Asylum, coming at you once again with another lesson from the Necronomicon. And today we're going to talk about a couple of things, but we're in the second phase of our discussion. So we'll be talking about the Book of Entrance and also the Necronomicon calendar. I wish you all a great evening or a good day whenever you're seeing this video. And I want to give all praises due to Santa Muerte. Before we begin, I'm going to have to share my screen with y'all because I want to show you what's going on the Art of Ninzuu page with the Necronomicon calendar. Ninzuu has two calendars, but I just want to share this all with you all. Let me just do quick share screen right quick. Where we at? Here we go. And when you go on the page, you can see here the month of Marduk, year 44, which is based on the conception. The years are dated based on the Necronomicon's publication, the Necronomicon by Simon. This is on the Art of Ninzuu's blog page, the official journal of Afro-Romani culture and Ninzuu spirituality. In the future, some of the Necronomicon subjects we'll be covering will be taken from this page, and Ninzuu itself will act as an umbrella for several spiritual paths. But in the beginning, and we see how it mentions the Necronomicon New Year is an intrinsic part of Ninzuu culture, and it begins on October 31st. And it begins, and the count is through the 50 names. And it's not totally perfected as of yet, but I did want to touch on that because I did mention that we would touch on that. Something else that we want to go into today is the Book of Entrance. So let me open that up so I can share some points with everybody. Okay. Not the Book of Entrance, I'm sorry. We're dealing with the second section, which is of the Zonei and their attributes. And in the top paragraph, we get to see something really phenomenal where it says that the gods of the stars are seven. They have seven seals, each of which may be used in their turn. They approach by seven gates, each of which may be open in their turn. They have seven colors, seven essences, and each a separate step on the ladder of lights. So let's just take it from there in the beginning. And we can see that a lot of times I get asked questions or have been asked in the past about the gate walking, and if you don't have the medals for the seals, what are you to do? But we could see that there are seven essences. There's incense, anything that resembles the attribute of that gate could be used. Its color, its incense, all these other different correspondences can be used as a way of tuning into that sphere. And let's continue on then. Okay, let me just grab this. And it says that the Chaldeans were but imperfect in their knowledge, although they had an understanding of the ladder and certain formula. They did not, however, possess the formula for the passing of the gates, save one for whom it is forbidden to speak. And it goes on to mention how the gates gives one wisdom to control a person's affairs in their life. Another interesting thing that appears here is that it's about the passing of the first three gates, and then sit down and go no further than that, enjoying the benefits that they have found in the preliminary spheres. But this is evil. So it's basically telling the person that's taken the path that to continue on, don't just stop at the first three spheres. And I guess the first three spheres deals with the basic necessities. Most of what people may ask for in life really derives out of two spheres. The sphere of Nebo, which deals with communication, it deals with travel, it deals with banking, money. Um, and the other sphere is the sphere of Anana, which deals with love, family, home, things of that nature. So most questions that people have, whether regardless of their practice, it just deals with those spheres. So the Madab was saying, go further, go beyond, than that. I'm gonna share my screen again, get back more into this part of the text. And we can see here the description of the Zonei, first being Nana, which is elder of the wanderers. And the reason why he's the elder of the wanderers is because Nana works as a mirror. So when you walk his gate, Nana is the only sphere that goes to the 12 signs of the zodiac within 28 to 30 days. Um, so when you work by the moon, each sphere that you go into, he seems to simulate. So let's say, for example, if he was going to Venus, you can see how Venus is to each of the 12 signs if you stay within that gate for a minimum of 1 month. Um, it gives you some other interesting things, some characteristics. Nebo gives a description of him. His color is blue. Ishtar. And Ishtar's information, Ishtar Nana, is very interesting because she's the god of passion and both of love and war. And depending upon her um, sign and the time appearance of heaven, she appears as the most beautiful lady in the company of lions and partakes the subtle astral nature of the moon god Nana. When they are in agreement, that is, when the two planes are auspiciously arranged in heaven, it is like offering two cups built freely to rain upon the sweet wine of the gods upon earth. And that tells you that when you get to the Ishtar gate, there's an anointing, and you sort of start getting adjusted to the lucidity that you feel. Um, it also mentions that she sometimes appears armored and is the most excellent goddess against the machinations of her sister. So that gives you a clue as far as what one of the watchers could be. And also as the god, the goddess, and the god on the altar. Um, uh, One of the things it mentions is that when the Nana takes her own for her own, no man can take another bride. So let me just stop the share right there and go into that, because that's a big thing. Is that once a person's chosen by Anana Ishtar, their relationship would have to continue. Um, and what a lot of times people get mixed up in is that the craft and religion is two different things. So the pathway to Necronomicon, it could be observed devotionally, but it's not a religion in itself. Um, and that's should be kind of be understood. A person may engage in a lot of different things, but when you're dealing with primordial undertakings, for those who have been initiated into the Necronomicon by Simon, into those rites, I'll say this. A lot of times people try to exchange paths, or maybe it's cool if you added something into your path. What I would say is that, in lack of a better term, that no one can replace their parents. If they come through the womb, that's how they came. Those are your parents. That's it. So when the person goes through the initiation, if they haven't been initiated before, that is who their spiritual family is for the rest of their existence, right, in this physical form. So in the same way, you have two parents that cannot be changed, whether you agree with them, don't agree with them, love them to death, or whatever. That's who your parents are. So the same thing when a person goes to Necronomicon by Simon, that's who your parents are. You can um, get to know other spiritual entities and um, obtain deep, profound relationships they may foster you as a parent or as an aunt. However, you'll find that the shape of your reality and how the invisible world communicates with you will always be in that premise. It's like if you're born of a certain culture or physical archetype, those things can't change just because you may evolve. You see what I'm saying? So you'll find there's different ways that you can tell an indication to that. But definitely, if you find any contentions with the path, you want to upgrade the vibration of it to suit where you are as an individual. And there's many different ways that practice can be done with Mesopotamian spirituality. There's other things, there's other energies that could be incorporated, like what the Mad Arab did. Everything can be incorporated, really. A lot of different things can be incorporated. There are some things that the Necronomicon current just collides with, and I'll get into that in a second. Let me go back into sharing my screen. Okay, and so that's what it means. It says, but know that Anna takes her own for her own, that was chosen by her, no man may take another bride, which more than likely referring to a spiritual marriage. It can manifest in other different ways, but it's definitely referring to a spiritual marriage. And another interesting passage that's often asked about is the one that follows that, where it says her manifestation is in the metal copper and also in the most beautiful flower of the field and in the saddest death of the battlefield, which is that field's fairest flower. So here we can also see some of the poetry the Marab's kicking, but we can also see some of the necromantic elements within even the gate walking. Nana's gate also yields a level of temptation, but it definitely yields a vibration of insight. Next, we have Shamash. Shamash, I can get a little bit more of this into the gate callings, so I'll just kind of leave some of the information alone. But one thing I would say is that Shamash sheds light in dark places. Nagal, it's a given. He's the man of Kutham. He's the man of the underworld. So I'll go on with that. Cthulhu is a little bit more of a broader base, but I'll talk about that in another video. Next, we have Marduk, which is a pretty familiar figure in the Simon's home. The gates themselves, the gate sigils, is sort of explained in other texts. So it's kind of interesting. Then we have Adar, which is the final step on the ladder of lights before entering the eighth gate in the realm of the Agigi. And there is also a space between Marduk and Adar that one goes into Ganzir to kind of relieve himself of his sins. When I got into Ganzir, it just felt like I just wanted to cry. As far as the initiatory aspect, I just want to go into a place and boil up and just let it out, but that's a place where your sins are forgiven. And that's another reason why people who may have walked the gates initially may walk through it again if they feel that they want to, to free themselves of certain attachments that they've made, or not necessarily attachments, but certain transgressions that they've made. You know what I'm saying? And that's a good way to deal with that is through that perspective. So it's definitely interesting to see how all those things chime in with the Zonei, and there's a lot of information that one can utilize to get familiar with those things, and that will help them greatly upon their path. There's a lot of information. There's a lot of information available online. I wouldn't suggest anything by Zechariah Sitchin. Sitchin, is often purported to be a scientist, but he was in fact a manager at a shipping warehouse. and he just studied some Sumerian dictionaries and then went out and tried translating the stuff. He never learned about um, what do you call it? He never learned about how you know how words can fit together in a sentence. Certain things he just never learned about the Mesopotamian grammar, and so he's made like a lot of miscalculations in his findings. To say that the Sumerian deities were like aliens and stuff, it's sort of like saying that the Orishas were also. And probably in our next conversation, we'll get into a topic about the code of the dead and the actual meaning of that. How that really kind of explode. There's a lot of things that in these texts of the Zonei that we'll cover later on, but I just want to give a brief overview of the description of the Zonei. And it's kind of already mentioned in the text, and just a few tidbits about it. As this is the second um, uh, section of the Simon Necronomicon text that should be recited during the second month of the Necronomicon calendar. Um, Definitely, a person may want to take their own notes. They want to pay attention to cleansing and things like that. And that's one of the things I did want to touch on today, that if someone's involved in the system, they want to make sure that they're taking care of themselves. They want to make sure that their health is up to par, that they're exercising. Usually I notice when dealing with certain type of energies of this nature, you want to make sure that your health is in shape, and you want to make sure you're drinking a lot of water. You want to try to free yourself from toxins as much as possible, and to kind of cultivate your health. Many people approach it differently. I find that trying to stay healthy and fit is probably one of the best avenues of working with the text, because your body is a temple. This is me, Sal Bay, aka Warlock Asylum, saying have a good night.